Welcome to our step-by-step guide on creating animations using Pixodesk Animator. In this video tutorial, we'll be creating an animation showing a spinning Earth with a paper plane flying around it. Let's get started by creating the planet. To create a circle, I am going to choose the ellipse tool on the left panel. Next, I am going to select the fill color. And then turn off the stroke. Next, I am going to press and hold the mouse button. Then I am going to drag the mouse while also holding the Alt and Shift keys. This allowed me to start from the center of the shape and to maintain equal width and height. Then I am going to rename the shape. Next, I'll improve the circle by applying a gradient color, adding depth to it. Switching to the gradient tool so we can see the control points. Then I'll change the center of the gradient by changing focal distance attribute. Let's add some continents. I'll be using Bezier tool. First, let's select the color. Now, let's draw our first polygon. I am going to click at the starting point. Then I am going to continue clicking along the shape. To close the polygon, I clicked on the starting point, but I could also use double-click or escape key to complete the shape. Repeating the process for the remaining continents. Next, I'll merge all these polygons into a single shape. I am switching to the selection tool. Then selecting all polygons on the left panel by clicking on the last and then on the first by holding Shift key. And choosing Combine option from the Path drop-down menu. Renaming the shape. Now, I am going to make continents semi-transparent by adjusting the opacity attribute. Alright, let's get the continents ready for animation. Firstly, I'm going to adjust the width of the shape, making it exactly 500 pixels wide. Then I am going to duplicate the shape by pressing Ctrl and D keys at the same time. Then selecting both. Next, I am going to align them next to each other by going to Distribute menu and picking Side by Side option. And then I am going to combine them again in a single shape. Renaming the shape. After that, I am going to make sure that the shape is aligned with the left edge of the page by picking Align Left in the Align menu. To animate elements, you can either click the stopwatch icon for a specific attribute or use the auto animation feature. I'll choose the second option by clicking the auto animation pin at the beginning of the timeline. This method involves locking the state of elements at a specific point in time, moving the time slider to another moment, and making adjustments. Any changes you make will automatically animate the properties, and keyframes will be generated automatically. Now, I'm going to move the continent's shape to the left. I am going to press, hold and drag on the shape with the mouse, holding down the Shift key at the same time. The Shift key allows to keep the movement horizontal, so it won't shift up or down. Next, I am going to adjust the precise position of the shape. Now, I'll remove the auto animation pin. Leaving it on could lead to unintended animations of other elements or attributes when you keep working on them. Next, I will select both shapes. And then I'll add a mask effect to ensure that the continent's shape is only visible within the borders of the Earth's shape. To make this animation more natural, let's rotate the Earth with its continents. For this, I am going to put them in a group and then rotate. Selecting the Earth. Pressing Group icon. Then dragging the continents and dropping them into the group. Setting the rotation on the group. Now, let's move on to draw a paper plane. let's repeat all steps we did to draw the continents. So, switching to the Bezier tool, adjusting the colors, creating multiple polygons, and then merging them into a single shape. Alright, not bad. Now, let's throw in a shadow effect. Looks much better now. I'll add an ellipse shape that will act as the flight path for our paper plane. Holding down the Alt key allows me to start from the center of the shape. To be able to move our paper plane along this ellipse, we need to convert it into a Bezier shape first. Switching to the Bezier editing tool. I've noticed that the Bezier path is currently clockwise, but I'd like it to be counterclockwise. To achieve this, I'm calling reverse path action. I'm also going to make the flight path look more natural by rotating it. We want the plane to follow the ellipse, and not the other way around. So I'm moving the plane above the ellipse on the left panel. Then selecting both shapes. And then calling Move Element along Path Action on the top toolbar. Since we don't need the ellipse anymore, let's delete it by selecting it and pressing the Delete key. Now, let's animate the zoom level of the plane when it is circling the Earth. This time, let's use traditional approach of animating attributes by clicking the stopwatch icon next to the scale attribute on the right panel. Changing the scale. Then I'm going to add several more keyframes along the timeline by moving the time slider and changing the scale value. Let's adjust the easing to make the motion of the plane more natural. I am going to click the space between two keyframes. Then, I am picking one of predefined easing functions. Next, I'll repeat the same for another frame range. Let's make sure the plane is hidden when it's behind the Earth by using the opacity attribute. I'm going to repeat the same steps we did for the scale. Clicking the stopwatch icon next to the opacity attribute. Moving to the next time position. Now, I want to maintain 0 opacity until this point. To do this, I'll add a keyframe by clicking the diamond icon next to the opacity attribute on the bottom panel. Then I'm going to add several more keyframes along the timeline by moving the time slider and changing the opacity value. Alright, we've completed all work. Let's play our animation. Now, let's export our animation and explore how to use it on a website. I'll stay on the Animated SVG tab and keep all the default settings. I'll keep the HTML demo file option enabled to show how to embed this animated SVG in an HTML file. Alright, let's export. So, I have two exported files in this folder. One is the animation in SVG format, and the other is an example of how you can embed it into your HTML page. I'll open the HTML file in the Google Chrome browser. Here, we can see the animation starts playing straight away and plays in a loop, which was the default setting in the export dialog. Now, I'll open Chrome DevTools. I'll stay on the Default Elements tab and I am going to expand some tags. This SVG tag here holds the content of our animated SVG. Note that you can't use SVG as an external image and link to it from an image tag because the animation won't work that way. You have to embed it inside your web page, like we did it here. Usually, you'd either copy-paste the SVG file into your web page, or if you're using a templating framework, inline the content into your page. Many static site generators and web frameworks provide ways to do this. Let's move on to the content of this SVG tag. Here we've got some static SVG content. And after this, there's some JavaScript code that makes our animation happen. By default, we added both the animation player library and initialization code right here. If you've got more than one animation on your website, you only need to include the player library once to minimize your web page size. You can handle this in the export dialog. And that wraps up our tutorial. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it helpful and enjoyable. We've got more exciting content coming up, so stay tuned for our next video. Bye for now.